No intro. We're back. We're back.
We're just gonna kick it right back off. All right.
Seth is alive.
I had to take a break. I took some medicine. I've got some cough drops. Hopefully, I don't need to use those because I really don't want you guys to have to listen to me doing that. But okay, Halo. Yeah. We'll just start this back off. Fuck it. We'll just kick back off from the beginning. And actually, let's hear your thoughts on it first.
Okay, well, I told you I've played the original 3 games. I didn't play them when they came out. I played I just played them over time, over the last, decade and a half. They were really big in the military. I remember watching people play them, but I didn't really become an Xbox fan until the Batman games kind of forced me to become an Xbox fan. So, I don't have the history with Halo. I'll give you the one thing later that I really did like, only because I was bored. But otherwise, I didn't really have a lot of expectations for the show. I wasn't a diehard to begin with, and so I can easily say that this show was terrible coming from that standpoint. I think a lot of fans could be justified in not liking it, but I could easily say that a lot of non-fans could be justified in not liking it, because the show was just a hodgepodge of lore that wasn't fully explained, lots of winking and nodding and did you notice that? Did you play the games? Kind of stuff. And then just there's I get it. It's a hard balance to do, but when you're basing a show or movie off an IP, you do have to find that balance of, are we going to make this for the fans or are we going to make this for everybody? And if it's for the fans, then most of the time it's not even worth it. Just make a little fan film and release it to the Xbox community or something like that. But if you're going to go hard and you're going to do a series that your entire, Paramount network gets behind and boasts as their big thing for 2022, then you need to make it accessible. And it wasn't that it was so complicated you couldn't figure it out. It was just boring. I thought that the majority of the show was boring. And Halo is one of the most recognizable, suits, and the guns are cool. And even from playing the game, I'd see something, I'd be like, oh, hey, that's cool. But it all just looked bad. It didn't look, it looked clunky. The fight choreography always just looked slow and heavy. And when they did go, speed it up to show you, oh, these guys are superhuman, it looked fake. And
it
just
looked sped up.
It looked like they were pressing fast forward. Yeah. The plot was convoluted as hell, and some of the aliens looked great, but at the end of the day, when it got to the end of the season, it was just lackluster to me, man. And I really had no will for a second season. I don't know if they've announced a second season yet or not, but I was like, man, you spent all this money on this show for it to be this, and it really didn't need to be this. I agree with you. I feel like Halo is such a massive universe that even if you wanted to center it around Master Chief, you could have gone in so many other directions, but instead they went with this convoluted story that just did not have a good payoff. And it was just not my cup of tea. And then on top of that, the other thing I would say is, one of the best things about the Halo game is, this idea that you're like the only guy, you're like the last of them, or Master Chief is like the revered. There's times where you see other whatever these guys are, but it's not often. And so because you're like the only one on the screen there, Master Chief is just put on this pedestal of amazing. And this is like, they might as well have called this Master Chief the early years, because he didn't feel special. He got his ass kicked by his fellow chiefs or whatever they are, and he just didn't he never rose above in the show as much as people would think it would, because it's about him, or you would think it's about him. So yeah, as a fan, as a person that's kind of a fan of the games but wasn't like diehard to begin with, I thought it was very lackluster and not worth my time, not worth Paramount's time for all the advertising they did.
I gave him the benefit of the doubt because, like I said before we went to break, I was like, if there had been zero expectations, the Halo universe had not existed as a game before,
Mm-hmm.
this might have been an okay job. Like, it might have been an okay show. Having said that, I still feel like there's a lot of corrections that would have needed to be made. Ditch the Madrigal shit completely because it wasn't interesting. When you have a show about superhuman soldiers and an alien artifact that could lead to, well, I mean, actually, if the show hadn't been made, I wouldn't know that's what that's what the Halo rings do. Like a mysterious alien artifact, like an ancient species, a kidnapped, like a hostaged Earthling who's been taken control of and like indoctrinated by this alien species. What, like, if you've got all of those elements, and again, super convoluted, but you've got a super soldier who's realizing now that he has also been indoctrinated for his entire life and has found a way to get around it. Not to mention a brain invading AI, which is also not what Cortana is necessarily. Why in the world, when you have all those elements, are we going to try and add in some sort of planetary rebellion from a character with the worst haircut I've ever fucking seen on a character in my life? Like, I don't understand how that got through. Like, I don't understand why they thought that looked good. And then the pirate character, who honestly, like, the actor, I can't remember his name, but I'm seeing him pop up in a lot more stuff. He did okay with the role. I just think that the role was bad.
Which guy? The guy that played Master Chief, or
no, I can't
his
even
pal
remember.
that he let leave.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name. That's how forgettable he was. Like,
I know who you're talking about though, and he always, he was
in No Way Home. He was in the recent Ghostbusters movie. He's been popping up in a bunch of stuff. Lately, especially in like the nerd world.
His name's Bokeem Woodbine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did like him, but I'm not saying complex storylines don't work. The Expanse, I don't know how deep you've gotten into it. It is very complex. There's a lot going on. There's all these different factions. There's Mars, there's Earth, there's the Outer Rim folks. I
feel like they've also done a better job of world building in that regard, though. This show seemed to rely on like everybody's previous knowledge of the Halo universe, while also taking a lot of stuff that we knew about the Halo universe and turning it on its ass. Because there's a bunch of shit here that was not like what I remember as established canon. So they went their own way. And
the reason the Expanse works is because you had novels that had things storied out, and even if the show doesn't always go where the novels go, you had this foundation. Halo had these games foundation, which, yes, there's story in the games, and I'm sure there's other media as well, but it's
books, comics, the whole smash.
But at the same time, those weren't, those weren't books, those weren't complete story maps. They involved a level of gameplay that's not the easiest thing to take that and turn it into a narrative without some finesse. And I just felt like they just wanted to, let's expand on the story, but let's not give it any time to breathe. Let's hope people have some idea of what's going on. And then let's just, instead of just keeping the story simple and then building off of that, let's just, throw a lot of shit at their face every episode, and then it'll be done. And it just, there were times where it dragged really bad for some reason.
There were a lot of times where it dragged out. There were a lot of times. And then there were a lot of times where they like kind of glossed over shit that they really should have explained better.
I didn't care about half the characters in the show. I really didn't, because there was so many. This is a big cast for a first season.
Yeah. Completely unnecessary sex scene. to be thrown in there. Like,
oh, that's right. Yeah, I was like, wait, who had sex? Yeah, that's right.
Wildly unnecessary. Like, and they pissed off a bunch of fans, and it didn't really serve anything. Like, because like in the next episode, she's like, all right, I'm getting tased by these one people, so I guess fuck all humans now. Like,
it was, and I didn't understand why that. I didn't understand their romance at all. It just felt forced. It felt so forced. Like, she's the main for the bad guy, he's the main for the good guy, they should hook up. It felt like a dumb fanfic story. Really,
honestly, I was worried about the show from the first episode when he fucking takes his helmet off. Like, because that is something that Master Chief does not fucking do. Like, you don't take his fucking helmet off. Now, a big part of that, specifically on the video game side of things, is that helps you keep this immersion that you are the superhero here. They're calling him Master Chief. They don't call him John a whole hell of a lot in the video games. They're calling him Chief. That could fucking be anybody. Like, that could be you, that could be me in that suit, like anybody. They wanted people to be able to jump into this game and feel like they are the fucking hero of the story.
Keeps it ambiguous. Yeah.
Keeping him faceless, keeping him relatively nameless is another way to keep that immersion in there.
Yeah.
Now, that could very well have been done in this show, but I feel like with the Mandalorian, they were like, oh no, we can't have another guy who doesn't take his helmet off. We just can't do that. It's like, no, you could, and never take his fucking helmet off.
Then don't
take his fucking helmet off.
Don't do a show based on that. Then, like, if you want that,
voice actor,
they
got the voice actress for Cortana. Like,
did they?
Yeah. Like, it was the Cortana from the game. Like, that was really cool that they were able to do that. They got the same actress to like do the mocap for. It would have been great if they had been able to get the same actor who plays Master Chief. I'm not sure what the circumstances are and if they even tried to have it where he was there for the voiceover when the helmet was on, or if they were just always going to be like, you know what, he's going to spend the majority of this show with no helmet and sometimes even with like no armor. It was like, I have zero interest in the character of Master Chief when his helmet is off and his armor is off. You can't get me there. You got me nowhere by having those things in there.
They probably could have pulled that off had they not done it so fast, had they done it mid-season or end of season. But this felt to me like a rehash of the Stallone Dredd, but it made more sense for that. They cast Sylvester Stallone as Judge Dredd, and of course you don't cast a big name like that and then hide their face the whole time. But then that movie sucked, and they expanded the lore, and it was a shitty movie. They remade Dredd with Carl Urban. Carl Urban's a known name, but at that point, well, I mean, he's not as known to a lot of people. He's done minor roles as well as some major roles, but he never took his helmet off, and that movie proved to be fantastic. They did a whole film around a badass in a helmet, and Halo is a badass in a badass suit. So if you're going to take that property, you don't have to change it to make it work. The whole reason you're doing it is because it works off this. The gamers in all these years have never needed to know more than what we've given them. So why try to give them more when it's just unnecessary? And then, if you kept it, if you never took his helmet off, you wouldn't have need to hire the guy that played him. I'm sure that's, he wouldn't have wanted that type of role, but you could have done a voice actor that sounded similar to the one in the game, and it would have been fine. It felt like they tried too hard for this show, and I don't know if I'm going to Google search it right quick. I don't want to talk too much more about this because I feel like we're just beating a dead horse, but
yeah, I will say, I don't want another season of this show.
Well, too bad. It's been confirmed.
It has been confirmed. Well, that's
in fact, they confirmed it in advance of the first season. So unless they decide we jumped the gun way too quickly on that, they've already confirmed a second season. So
I mean, with the way that the first season ended, I kind of assumed that they had planned another one. I didn't know that it had gotten greenlit. Maybe it got greenlit ahead of time. Maybe they already had a contract in for it or something like that.
Yeah.
This show, I like I said before we went to break, I left this show feeling pretty unsatisfied.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and they did the Doom thing. They did the first person shooter thing that has never worked on screen. Just don't do it. Sorry, doesn't work.
Didn't look good. Looked really fake. Honestly, like if they wanted to do something like that, just go all CGI. Like just fucking pull a Beowulf and just make the whole show like VFX. It's like don't do any real actors or anything like that. It's like the technology's come pretty far in that level of graphical animation. Like let's see you do it. Like just fucking do it. Like that way we don't have to suspend the disbelief of whether or not like a fucking stuntman was actually able to pull that off or not. And then you also don't have to rely on the capabilities of somebody to do that to look like a super soldier. You can just make them a fucking super soldier. And it's like just fucking just give us the show. Just give us an animated show.
I think if they're looking for a way to make the second season better, they should go back to their roots, man. They should go back to the one Halo show that worked, and that was Red versus Blue. I mean, even as a not hardcore fan, I knew this to be the greatest show ever. I would watch this for hours. It's not good, but I would watch it for hours on end. And there's like 9 seasons of it. There's so much to this show, and this show is better than the new one.
It's so unmatched in how funny this show was, like just how clever they were, and how much fucking work they had to put in order to make it.
Oh yeah,
it was like just running around in multiplayer observation mode the whole fucking time, like
and then doing a narrative to it. Oh my gosh, it's so simple, but it worked. There's a devout fan base behind this show. It was great.
It's never going to die. That's the thing. Like you can still revisit all that stuff and it still holds up.
I would rather Paramount do an upgraded version of this show than a second season of Halo. So yeah, I'm not a fan.
Don't even put it on Paramount. Just give it back and just have Rooster Teeth pick it back up with Halo Infinite and fucking throw it up on YouTube again. Like here we go.
Yeah. Moving on. To a show that has been continuing on. It took a long break. I think the last time it was out was in 2019. It took a break.
It was down for a good while.
Yeah, Stranger Things season 4. The first part of season 4. I think it's the first 7 episodes, so I'm calling it 4.1. Dropped on Memorial Day weekend. And I don't know why I've got a little thing there. That's annoying. Photoshop mistake. Sorry about that. But
what do we? This little,
the little fake text thing. Yeah. So yeah,
whatever.
We're gonna do a non-spoiler talk first about this. But holy crap, man! Like,
hey, real quick, I'm gonna let's do this kind of funny. I'm gonna record our screen here. Let's pretend like this was on purpose. It's like, hey, what's up, YouTube? Here's our review of Stranger Things season 4.1. Spoiler free. Go, Josh. Kick it off.
Okay.
This is part of our live show. So if you're watching the video that I'm going to make off of this, we do a podcast where we talk about all this stuff. So this is a snippet out of that. So subscribe, hit that notification bell. There you go. Let's do it.
Now you make me want to fix the overlay. But
screw it. We're going to have a live counter up in the fucking corner too. So.
Okay.
So can't do anything about it.
They packed a lot of stuff into this 4th season. I've been a fan of Stranger Things since the beginning. I really do like this show. The first season fucking blew my socks off, as it did with a lot of other people. It was just fantastic. It's a fantastic show. It had some fantastic kid actors. It brought me back to everything that was great about the 80s. I mean, it was really something.
This was the show for like 90s kid, 80s kid nostalgia.
It was.
It was the show.
Almost to the point of too much, but instead of just being nostalgia bait, they actually put a really cool story behind it. Like, it really does have a cool narrative. And then it has like a cool nerd narrative too. Like, if you've never I've never played D&D, but I like the fact that that's where this show started. It was this this D&D thing where these kids didn't understand what all this crazy stuff was going on in their town, and the only way to make it make sense in their minds was to equate it to their D&D games. You know, they equated the villains to the villains in their D&D games, and that's how they fit it all in their small little brains. And
they're continuing on with that too, because every season has been based on a D&D villain.
Yes,
and kind of like follows like sort of that.
And I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. And I like that me not being a D&D player, I've never played a game in my life, I can follow it. We just talked about a show that had so much lore at home, so much wink to wink, that I did not think that a person that had not played Halo would understand half the stuff. There's so many nods and references in this show, but I think it's still incredibly accessible for the average viewer. It's great. And it has really great, relatable characters in it too. The only problem is that we've built up this gigantic cast. I mean, it went from small handful of kids and a couple interesting adults to this. And even Millie Bobby Brown, who plays 11 in the show, recently did an interview that said, yeah, we've got too many people in this cast, because this season 4, while I think is still a great season, there's a reason why these episodes were all over an hour, because there's so much going on. In fact, I want to bring up this poster, which is supposed to be a cool poster, but it kind of shows how crazy this show has become. It's a good season, but this is the poster for season 4. Let's see. Can we do this? Go to that. There's literally 4 different stories going on in this show, and I'm sure they'll all converge. But for the first 7 episodes, they don't. And thankfully, they don't do a thing where one episode is all one story, another episode is all another story, and and you feel like you're just waiting to get back to the one that you like. But and they do a decent job with hopping around, but because there's so much hopping, there's just so much going on, so many cast members in one show, it's kind of overwhelming. Without getting into spoilers,
I think I saw the interview that you were talking about too.
Yeah.
Like Millie was like, I talked to the showrunners. She's like, we need to go Game of Thrones. We need to start killing people. And they won't, like, I guess they.
And I don't think that's necessarily her being like, at first when I heard that, I was like, oh,
really unreasonable.
Yeah. Is the lead getting jealous of less screen time? That's not the case. It really is overwhelming. There's so much.
Well, in that same interview, she said that she wanted to be killed off in like season 3. And she wanted more people to die in season 3. And they knocked her off about it, because I think that was the context of the interview. I don't think she said a thing about season 4 because she didn't want to like even open up the possibility of somebody being like, oh, that's a spoiler. But like, no.
There was a lot of cast in season 3, and they've added new cast members onto season 4. And I'm not saying they're bad. One of them's name, I think, is Eddie, like Stoner Eddie, and I love the character. I think, like,
Eddie. I think
Argyle.
Argyle, I think, is the Stoner character. Eddie is like the Hellfire leader.
Well, he was selling drugs. I guess he wasn't Stoner. He's just long haired and awesome. But yeah, sure. Argyle and Eddie are 2 new characters, and I do love it every time they're on screen. I think they're great. Then you got new bullies, you got new enemies, you got all the old cast coming back. Even some of the ones that don't have a lot of screen time are getting more screen time in this season than previous seasons. It's still a great show, but it is getting to that point where, holy shit,
things are getting a little convoluted.
This is getting and I think they have said that this is the final season, and then they're going to go into spinoffs, and it feels like they're ramping up.
That's good.
It feels like they're ramping up to a finale, which is why I was still so invested in it, because I think any other show I'd be like, I'm done. This is way too much in one show.
Right.
But at least they do a good job. The editing is great. The story of this season is not repetitive, which I thought, like season 2, for example, I felt was very repetitive. This season is a strong season in my mind. What do you think? Non-spoiler thoughts.
I mean, it's not the strongest season. I still think season 1 is the best.
It doesn't touch that.
Is the best side of the show.
But that had simplicity on its side at the same time.
Sure. But at the same time, like there's a certain feel that you want to get, like when you have a show that catches lightning in a bottle like that and they try and repeat it every single time, like of course not. Of course it's probably not going to happen. But this season was actually not the weakest for me. But it got close in some parts.
Would you agree that season 2 is the weakest?
Yes. Yeah.
I think we're on the same page there. Yeah.
I will put season 3 above this one though so far. Just in kind of like the way I enjoyed it, because season 3 felt like the ending, you know. Season 3 felt like, all right, we got the main monster, we got the main villain, the big bad. He's finally here. He's fed up, like he's sick of losing. We've only been seeing the henchman at this point. And now you've got and then they killed him, and now we've got like this super bad who shows up in the trailer. He's a pretty creepy looking fucking dude. And like at first you're like, okay, is it, like when I first saw the trailers, I was like, okay, is this the big bad? Like, is this the main villain now? What's going on here? And that question still kind of lingers in my brain. I'm not going to call that a spoiler, but like it felt like this doesn't feel like the final season to me. Like it feels like we could, like, I know that this is a 2-parter, so that feeling could change, but like it feels like, I mean, I guess if they're going into spinoffs, it makes sense. They're gonna. It feels like at the end of this whole series, part 1 and 2, they're still gonna leave it open-ended enough for something else to go on. But it's kind of hard to say, because this is just the first part of a 2-part series for this season, and so like it's actually really easy not to even talk spoilers, because we really can't like make any assumptions, because we've only seen half of what they intended for this season. And
we've seen more than half. I think we've seen 3/4, because there's only 2 episodes coming out in July, and while both of those episodes are 2-hour plus long,
you said there's only 2 coming out in July.
There's only 2, yeah, but they're both over 2 hours. So
basically we're getting the third act of the series.
Yeah, we're getting over 4 hours of content in July. So I mean, they could have done it in 4 episodes, but that
was another thing here. We only got 7 episodes this season, as opposed to their 8 or 9, I believe, in the other.
But they were all over an hour.
They were all jam packed.
Yeah,
they were super long.
Bring up the times of this.
I will say, in the first 2 episodes, I was not feeling it. I was not on board. It wasn't hard. Like it didn't take me long to like push me over. Like I was on the fence, but I had my leg over on the side of, hey, I'm not into this, and I was about ready to like jump off. And then that 3rd episode came in, and they kind of like amped things up a little bit, and like it's like the first couple episodes of every show that we're seeing right now, where they're kind of like trying to establish like kind of like the new normal for what the season's going to be. And I was so satisfied with like the ending of this season 3 that I was just like, all right, cool. Just leave it there. Like, and leave the mystery. Like we're done. It's like, yes, we got that little stinger at the very end of it. I'm like, oh, not the American. And so Hopper's still alive. What is that? Is that what's going on here? It's like, don't care. Leave it alone. Don't even fucking do it. Don't even dive into it. Like, leave that there. It's kind of like the ending of Inception, you know? It was like where the top is just spinning there, and it looks like it's going to teeter over, but at the same time, it doesn't look like it's going to teeter over. And then it ends before you actually know. And then it just leaves the audience with a bunch of unanswered questions. But that gets you going back to the show to kind of like keep enjoying it. Be like, all right, I'm going to keep looking for these little things. Or it's like, oh, that ending's just so good, but I'm so anxious to get these answers. And then they're like, all right, we're going to do another season. I'm like, well, you motherfuckers. Like, because it seemed like it was in such a good place. It ended on like an emotional high note. And now they've got this season 4 here. So like those first 2 episodes, I was just not on board.
I liked Elements. I liked
I liked Elements, but not enough for where I was like, all right, this season makes sense now.
This is definitely one of the more violent seasons. I don't know what you would rate this, but there are times where it feels the most rated R. Well, I don't know about rated R, but it definitely feels the most violent of the seasons so far.
The line seems so blurred between PG-13 and R now. Like it really just seems
when
to be
like TV content. Yeah,
it seems to be just like language based now.
It really does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're talking about just violence, you can pull off a lot if it's the right color or the right tint. Yeah.
But if you drop more than I think 2 F-bombs is like the maximum that you can drop in a show in a movie before it goes to R.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I was just like, like
I'm looking at the run times.
Rated at.
All of the episodes in this first batch were over an hour. The episode 7 was an hour and 40. The 2 episodes coming on July 1st, the first one is an hour and a half, and the second one is 2.5 hours. So, and unfortunately, I was incorrect. This is not the final season. There will be a 5th and final season that has been announced. And then there will be spinoffs after that. So there is a 5th. And just the way this is structured, it felt like, okay, they're holding off these feature-length episodes for the end. I thought that meant that the show was ending, but I guess not. I guess they have announced a 5th and final season. Let's get into spoilers because I do have some things I want to talk about for that. Let me bring this over to spoilers. So here's the thing. You were talking about the big bads and everything. The first 3 seasons, especially in season 3, you did have this manifestation of this big bad, right? This big creature. I don't know if it ever talked, but it worked through Billy, and it definitely seemed like the biggest monster we've gotten so far.
Yeah, the mind flayer was
mind flayer, right? So now we have Vecna, and I'm sorry, like it doesn't. We've now seen the origins of Vecna, but unless there's something that they haven't shown us yet, I don't feel like he's connected to everything else. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, he was the guy that sent the monsters in the last 3. Like, he said certain things. Like, he said when he killed Barb in the pool, he says things like that. But in my mind, it still doesn't feel like he's really that connected. I don't see him as the big bad.
It didn't even seem so. Like they seem to be kind of going back and forth about what the intrigue is in the Upside Down as far as what kind of creatures lay there. So we had the Demogorgon in the first episode, and that was the big bad. Like the Demogorgon and Hawkins Labs. Right. They were the real. Right. They were the villains in the show for the most part. Like the Demogorgon was even kind of like a side baddie.
Right.
And that creature seemed to operate pretty autonomously. It didn't have like some sort of hive mind or anything like that. Like, cause you hear them use the term hive mind in this series.
Yeah.
Yet we haven't seen a huge amount of indications of that because there's only ever like one singular entity that's at work in each one of these seasons. Except for in season 2, where they had just a shitload of Demodogs and the Mind Flayer.
Didn't they raise one of them? Or was that season 3?
Yeah, Dustin raised Dart, as he called him, because
that's
the
right.
3 Musketeers. Like, and so you had that element there, but they were definitely like taking the orders of something, and that made the Mind Flayer out to be kind of like the big bad. And we also saw that at the end of season 1 with like kind of like the teaser of like that shadowy shit. and that tentacly like thing that the Mind Flayer seems to take the form of.
Right.
And then in season 3, we're like, okay, here we go. This is real now. He's done trying to play mind games, like kind of through it all. Like now he's taking a physical presence and he's going to be here to fuck everything up. And like, all right, cool. We're on board. It's like, but as far as like the connection between the Demogorgon and the Mind Flayer, we never really got anything there.
Yeah.
We never really saw what kind of a connection there was, other than like Will's time in the Upside Down kind of like gave him some sort of like cross dimensional awareness or connection, and which is how the Mind Flayer actually got in. And it seemed like the Mind Flayer and Vecna both have kind of like a similar ability of targeting somebody's mind and invading it, and just using it differently. Now, as we have seen, Vecna, his real identity, I mean, that was incredibly interesting. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that was actually pretty cool. That this was again Hawkins' lab fucking up, but like realizing that it is way deeper of a fuck up than you thought it was when they just opened up a gate through 11.
Okay, well, hold up, because I am confused about Vecna. I did like the stuff back in the labs and Young 11. I liked how they were building up to him. I thought that was one of the more creative. You know, we've seen other shows where the main character loses their power for a while, and you're just kind of waiting for them to get it back. But they used that as a way to get her to relive her childhood. And I did like that. What I just want to make sure, unless I missed something, were they saying that Vecna, the guy, as a kid, just had powers and then they sent him to Hawkins' lab? Because it seemed like he had powers as a kid, killed his family, so he just had powers.
Seems that way, yeah.
Okay, so he's the first person in this whole series to just have powers, not to be an experiment of some kind.
Yeah. And I can't remember too terrible much about like any descriptor that they had about where those came about.
Yeah, it just seemed like he had them, and then he ended up at the
I don't know if they will explore that.
They might, yeah.
That house that they were in might have had something to do with it, and maybe the Mind Flayer kind of like gave him this connection through all that stuff, but didn't really see any indication of that. I don't know if we will.
That could be in the finale, but so far we don't know.
Could be. Yeah. I mean, that might maybe the Mind Flayer comes back in season 5. Maybe that's the big bad then.
Maybe.
Like, who knows? But yeah, seems like Vecna, or number 1, had powers before coming to Hawkins' lab, and he was kind of like the baseline for their research and like how they were going to get all this shit done. Which is less interesting to me than just like scientific experiments gone crazy, because now it's just straight up supernatural.
Yeah.
And like supernatural, like cloned, not cloned, but kind of. Brenner coming back to life. No, that felt pretty unnecessary to me. I don't feel like his character needed to be there for what they were doing. So I don't necessarily understand why they brought him back, because he didn't really add any value to the show for me.
Yeah, because I could have swore he was dead. So he wasn't.
Yeah, we all thought he was dead.
That was a fake out. It was just a straight up fake out.
Yeah, he had a scar on his face from where the Demogorgon got him. So it's like, okay, well, how'd you live through that shit?
Yeah,
how'd you live?
The one person to survive.
because in the same series where you're showing us that he is alive now, you're also showing us a Demogorgon in Russia that's fucking people up with like
with weapons, with all types of weapons.
Yeah, all kinds of weapons.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. They didn't need to bring him back. They could have just had her going through the things, and he could have been in the flashbacks. He doesn't need to be in the current.
And I think that's how they should have done it. But at the same time, him being there didn't take away from what she was having to go through.
Right.
So I can kind of let it go.
It's not a huge thing. I did like all the flashbacks. It was weird. Her face on the young person's body, that was definitely odd, and it was uncanny at times for sure. But I did feel like that storyline was stretched out over time, but they could do it because they were hopping back through all these other stories.
Yeah.
But I did like the reveal that she wasn't the person that killed everybody, because at first you were like, oh shit, she just killed like this whole classroom full of kids.
Yeah, and it was interesting that, like, through trauma, she remembered things completely differently.
Yeah,
and that was kind of how things went.
I did wonder though. So on that scene where she sends Vecna into the, and I know we're just hopping all around, but when she sends Vecna, was that saying that she created the Upside Down? Or
I don't think so. I think she pushed him through some sort of interdimensional doorway.
Okay.
And
maybe she just created the gate somehow, but I couldn't tell because
she
all we
she
saw
seemed
was
to-
like clouds, and then now it's manifested into a straight up upside down version of Hawkins. But so you don't think that was saying that she created the Upside Down?
No,
Okay.
no. I think the Upside Down was there already. I think its connection to Hawkins was created when she pushed him through that gateway. And
Okay.
because when they were when Nancy and Steve and all them were in the Upside Down, they were going through and they were finding stuff from like right there at the beginning. And so like Vecna had his section there that was pulled in, but when 11 opened up the gate, that kind of created some sort of manifestation for Hawkins in that specific time period.
Yeah, I do
because
remember
they were
saying
finding
that.
all the elements from like season 1.
Yeah, it's not
which
an
felt
ongoing mirror. It felt it's it's trapped in that time. Yeah.
Which felt kind of cheesy to me, being like, all right, we're time traveling. Like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're fucking not, because when you open the doorway back to the original, you're back in the exact same timeline. Like it was pretty cool to see like them communicating through the lights. Like that was an interesting thing. I liked that bit.
I liked them getting trapped and there. That was, I thought that whole, them trying to find a way back, and them trying to survive against the bat creatures and everything. I wonder if Steve's gonna die in this, because his wounds are pretty bad. So I wonder
if he's gonna die, or if he's gonna have some sort of infection that's gonna have him be kind of like the new victim, like Will was, or something like that. They're just gonna like surround the whole thing around him. I will tell you though, another thing that I didn't like though is them fucking teasing a romance between him and Nancy again.
I know.
I'm just like, what do you make up your fucking minds, people? Like shit.
Okay. First of all, before we even get into that, I totally forgot that Nancy is still in high school. Like,
yeah, the timeline was really funky.
I could have swore when she was working for the paper in the last season, that meant that she graduated.
Well, I think that was a summer. That sounded like a summer job.
Oh, it was a summer job. Okay, because I'm like, it felt like her and the older brother were playing adult for like that whole season, and now they're back in school, and I'm like, this is weird.
When Jonathan was still in school in California, I was like, that fucked me up a little bit. I was just like, wait a minute, wait a second. Like I thought Jonathan was done with school also. Like I thought he was ahead, but yeah.
Jeffrey says I love this season. I do too. We're just we're negative people.
How would I watch a show like this and not nitpick a little bit?
But going back to that romance, it did make sense. I mean, when you're kids, long distance relationships don't work when you're kids. So she's been separated from, oh my god, the cast is so big I can't even remember all the names of the cast. She's been separated from what's his face for so long that she didn't even want to, from Jonathan, and she didn't even want to take the flight back.
I'm gonna fill up my water. I can still hear you though.
Okay. She didn't even want to take the flight to California to see him because she was, I don't know, working on her job or something like that. And then she's thrown into a traumatic event, and Steve is there.
My career.
Yeah, as a high schooler. And
high school newspaper editor, so important.
Yeah. And then, Steve's there, and he's no longer douche. Like he's way different than he was in season 1. So it's not
Honestly,
crazy.
I didn't think he was a douche in like seasons, and like I think he lost his doucheness in season 2.
He did, but in season 1, he straight up like I can't remember if it was him or his friends that like called her a whore and like put it on like a side of a building or something like that. But he was a dick in season 1. I did
Season
not
1.
like him.
Well, even he didn't do that. Apparently, that was his friend.
Yeah, well, either way, he's come a long way. It doesn't. I don't care that they're teasing that because it's had the foundation for a love triangle between them. Jonathan's going to be back in town soon, and then it's going to be will she, won't she, which way she's going to go, stuff like that. So, I do like, however, it's small and interesting, but I do like it that he knows that Robin is gay, and he hasn't told anybody else yet. Like everybody else is like, why won't you just hook up with her? And I really did like that he could just say she's not into guys, she's gay, and he has not said that because that's not his thing to drop to the team group. And I thought that was a small thing that's cool.
Well, and also in that time period, it totally would not be cool.
No, it wouldn't be. It's cool now, but not,
Yeah, she'd get some stuff.
So there's that going on. We haven't even touched on the parents who are in Russia and their whole thing, or well, they're not in Russia till the very end, but Winona Ryder and what's his face are this back and forth whether or not this ransom means that Hopper is still alive. I'm glad that they didn't hold that out till later. We did get a lot of Hopper in Russia, and I did like that. I love anytime he's on screen. I love his storyline. I love that we got this kind of fake escape, and now that he's, now he's being thrown up against the Demogorgon. I'm glad they didn't hold that till the last minute. Anytime he's on screen, I think it's good screen time. So, but again, it's just another story. You could have done like 2 seasons out of this with all the content.
I just love David Harbour, so. So yeah, I was in.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on. I think the bullies kind of remind me of over the top Stephen King bullies.
The bullies were completely uninteresting to me in every way, and even in the show, they seem to just kind of like drop off.
They do, which is
fine.
Then
and then the guy turned into fucking, I don't know what's his name, Kirk Cameron. I was like, oh, this is all about religion.
Okay, but that
is all about Jesus.
That rings so true to that. That reminded me of The Mist. That reminds me of a lot of horror tropes where the over-the-top religious fanatic becomes violent and encourages a lynch mob like that.
Oh, for sure.
That shit is like, that gets me going because that is freaky to me. Like that, and that's like the most realistic thing of the show. So
I just thought it was weird that this kid was so diabolically evil.
It's weird that he has such great communication skills. Also, like from the beginning, he's like, let me have the mic. It's like you're supposed to be in high school, dude.
I'm the pep rally guy. Like I'm the fucking king of this school now. It's like I don't fucking care about you, dude. But didn't care at all.
Anyway, we could talk for hours on this show because there's so much stuff. I did like it though. I did like Peter Ballard as Vecna. I did like his story. I'm hoping it builds up to more, and I'm hoping they take some. I imagine now that we've seen him be cast into the Upside Down, I imagine we're going to see some scenes of how he connects because.
Well, I hope so. So
they haven't done a good job with that yet.
A big part of this would be explaining is like, okay, is he part of like this massive? Is he part of this hive mind now?
Because he said he killed Barb. Hive mind. He said he killed Barb. So this is more. He's not just.
He said he killed Barb. I don't remember that.
When Nancy is in the pool, he's speaking to her and he said, when I killed her, and I can't remember what his line was, but that's what he says. So he's bigger than just this season, but they haven't done a good job of connecting those dots yet. So I'm hoping that they do more of that.
I mean, I'm very irritated to find out that there's a season 5.
Me too.
That bugs the
honestly
fuck out of
me too.
I like, because again, it's like this is exactly what I was talking about. Like, it was earlier on. I'm saying it's like, okay, there needs to be a point where you have told a good story, and you need to stop. Like, you need to call it quits. Now, having this big event, first of all, I would have thought that the trilogy would have been fine. It was like, close it out, season 3. You guys are good there. Don't pick it up. Don't keep it going. Emotional high. Like, 11 doesn't have her powers, but she's moving to California. She's gonna be a normal kid. That's great. Although her scenes, every one of her scenes in this show where she was being a kid was just ultimately cringy, and I didn't like them. It was just like the
yeah, there's
the level of evil. Yeah,
they've announced that the season 5 will be the final one, and then they'll have spinoffs. Yeah,
the level of evil that high school kids are being illustrated to go to now seems a little bit extreme. And
but they do tie in. They tied in that real world stuff of the D&D is satanic and stuff like that. Like that is from the 80s. It might not have been that crazy. I mean, they're definitely exaggerating a bit for the plot and everything, but I did like it. I'm like, that is some real world stuff that you're bringing into this. So I appreciated that.
I think that it was a really interesting way that they find that just now they decided to link D&D to Satanism and all that shit. Like,
yeah.
I think it's pretty remarkable that they explained away the entire events of season 3 with a mall fire.
I know. That almost seemed like a nod to 80s sequels where they just somehow the town gets past it.
I think it would have been better for them to have shown something kind of relation to, like, this needed to be the season where it's like, all right, everybody now knows. Like, too many people have been involved. Too much crazy shit is happening. Like, the whole town is now finding out that shit's getting crazy. And unfortunately, the police chief who could have like helped kind of like tide things over is gone. And the laboratory people that were a part of it are gone. Like, when you have Russians invade a small town in Indiana and take over a mall, people are going to find out about it.
Well, at least the military is involved. Like, at least it's not just like nobody outside of this small group knows. There is this whole military subplot as well, which I thought was way over the top. Like, the military is definitely the bad guys. They're straight up torturing these dudes from Hawkins. It is weird that we're rooting for the lab company now, and hoping that they complete their mission before the U.S. military gets them. But they're straight up like torturing the agents, and I'm like, that was going a little far. But this is the original group, with the exception of Max here. You know, this is the foundation, and I'm glad that for the we get all these other characters.
We could completely do away with that guy on the far right who we just don't care about anymore. Will didn't do anything in this season, like, again.
I think they're setting him up to be. I can't tell if they're setting him up to be like he is actually in love with 11 or he's gay. One of the two. It feels like they keep on going back and forth between that. Otherwise, he is just the same character that he's been for the last 2 seasons. He's the PTSD character that doesn't want to grow up, and everybody else is growing up.
Wasn't even that this time around. Like, he was just an extra.
Yeah, he doesn't feel.
It bugged me.
And honestly, this guy, what's his name? Lucas isn't getting. He got some of the screen time with the jocks, but he's even being pushed to the side a lot more this season. Dustin is getting a lot of time. Max, I thought, was getting the short end, but then she's gotten a lot to do in the later episodes.
And she was doing killer in this season.
She's great.
She did a great job.
Yeah, I like her a lot. And then, of course, you got the main kid who's still getting plenty of screen time. and 11, I like that it, we're building up her powers, because honestly, it was getting to the point where, there's no, as long as
I didn't care about her without him.
She's but she's the Superman, as things are more at stake when she isn't able to just obliterate things. So I like that they're taking their time, but honestly, when you look at this cast is crazy. We haven't even gotten back to Paul Reiser being in this, or even Robert Englund, who had the most useless cameo. I realized that was him, and I'm like, what? They got him to be in this show for that?
And then they got Susie in there again.
There's so many people involved in this show. And then
to be fair, we've got some dead characters in here too.
Like, I know these aren't all, but there's still a lot of these characters that are in the current season.
Billy Hargrove's gone, Bob Newby's gone, Martin Brenner should have been dead. Like he should have been gone.
Murray's back. Whatever. He's interesting in this season.
Yeah, like Erica annoyed me in this season.
Yeah,
like, she should have been like more on board after having been through what she was in season 3.
Yeah,
I don't know why she was fighting with everybody.
There's a lot going on. I still really did like the season, though. I think this is a strong season. It's not the strongest, but it's not the weakest, and I cannot wait for the finale. But I am kind of sad to know that this isn't the finale of the show, because it feels like it's building up to the finale of the show. But we will see how it ends. So, yeah. Are you going to survive enough for us to talk about Obi-Wan?
You know what? I don't know. At this point, like I'm like crying. I'm coughing so bad.
Well, we can break for the night and then come back and talk about Obi-Wan.
Well, I do want to close out our sinus pressure. I do want to close out our talks on a Stranger Thing. Look at me. I'm so emotional. Stranger Things is just so important to me.
It's just gotten you to that point.
God damn, man. This cold flu, whatever this is beating me into the dirt. I do want to say, if they ended it here, and like in this next series, they do kill a bunch of characters off, and they're like, all right, we're going to thin this cast out to the players who we really need, or we just don't involve, like these characters are finally done. Like they're finally through the mess. They don't need to come back into it. Like we don't need them to be bothered by it again.
We shrink it down. Yeah.
But if they continue it on with like this full ensemble, there's going to be some problems.
I think so. I think Stranger Things has been successful because of the Duffer Brothers. The Duffer Brothers have been the creative force from the beginning, and that's what a lot of these long-term shows do not have. So, Jeff says he's sorry. He feels your pain. But at least we have the Duffer Brothers. So I feel like as long as they're there, it's going to be better than most shows. But
I wasn't on board for these first 2 episodes. By the end of this series, I was pretty in. I was like, all right, this was a good season. Like this was a good season. Mm-hmm. And like having them go back to the origins, like the most interesting stuff that I found was in 11's past. That was by far the most interesting shit of seeing kind of like what happened with number 1, finding out about all these other powerful characters that they had.
Like, that was more interesting than the other ones that we saw in season 2. I fucking hated that
episode. That episode with number 8 was,
oh my gosh, it was just shit.
Didn't need it at all.
SNL did a better job with that on their stupid skit for it. It was terrible. They joked on that show so hard. Jeffrey says, talk about Obi-Wan and the boys next time. I agree.
You know what? Let's do that. Like let's call it here. We're not going to jump into Obi-Wan today. Let me catch the boys so we can like throw that all into an episode.
Sure. But if you want to meet before Wednesday and do another show, we can, because we're halfway through Obi-Wan, and I agree.
Like I'm on the tail end of whatever this is in my chest, Like,
you just need to not be talking for multiple hours straight. So.
Yeah, like the talking is what manipulates it in my throat and is causing that tickle. I've got 3 cough drops in my mouth right now to try and combat it. But yeah, it's been a rough go so far.
Sounds like it, bud.
Yeah, episode 7 was great. I was really into that. It was pretty cool how number 1 was kind of manipulating her the entire time, just to free himself. That was great. I'm excited to see what they do with this season, with the rest of the season, but I didn't need it to go on from here.
Yeah, I am kind of sad because I was certain that this was the end. I am kind of sad about that. But yes, Jeffrey says get well soon. I'm not going to have you talk anymore. Thanks for hanging out with us. If we get together before Wednesday, we'll talk about the first half of Obi-Wan. Otherwise, we'll talk about the first 4 episodes of Obi-Wan when the next time you see us. So
good deal. The first 4, or otherwise like the end of Act 2. Hopefully the last 2 episodes are all like Act 3 level.
Hopefully. I have a lot of great things to say about Obi-Wan. I have some critiques, especially when it comes to the technical aspect of things. I think we're finally starting to see the limits of the volume, which is interesting. But I can't wait to talk to you about that. So next time, that's what we'll talk about.
All right, let's I'll go ahead and sign us off. It's like, thank you, Nerfers, for checking out this video. Hit the like button if you like this. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Hit us up on those comments. Let us know what you guys thought of Stranger Things. Let us know what you think is going to happen in the next series. And are you excited about a season 5? Let us know what you guys thought about Halo, everything else that we talked about. Hit us up in those comments. Find us on social media. I'm Seth. That's Josh. Until next time.
See ya.
Take it easy.